Sometimes, the strongest partnerships in the world are the ones hiding the deepest struggles behind the scenes. The audience sees the success. They see the finished product. They see the smiles, the achievements, and the moments that look perfect on camera. But what they rarely see is the pressure, the exhaustion, and the sacrifices happening quietly behind everything. For years, Bad Chad Customs was never just a car-building channel. To millions of viewers, it represented something much bigger. It was a story about passion, a story about creativity, and a story about two people chasing a dream together. Every video brought something different. The sound of engines coming to life, the sparks flying from welding machines, the impossible custom builds that seemed like they should never work, and the unpredictable energy inside the workshop. But behind all of that chaos was someone helping keep everything together. Someone who brought balance to the madness. That person was Jolene. To fans, Jolene was never just the person holding the camera. She was much more than that. She became the emotional foundation of Bad Chad Customs. She was the calm presence behind Chad's wild ideas, the person who helped organize the chaos, and the person who helped transform a small-town dream into a brand recognized around the world. While Chad was known for his creativity and unbelievable builds, Jolene helped turn that creativity into a story people could connect with. She helped fans understand the person behind the machines. She showed the struggles, the victories, the failures, the moments of frustration, and the moments when an impossible idea finally became reality. Together, Chad and Jolene created something that felt different, something authentic, something real. But then everything changed. One simple announcement revealed that Jolene was no longer part of Bad Chad Customs. There was no dramatic goodbye video, no long public explanation, and no major confrontation shared with the audience. Just silence. And sometimes, silence creates more questions than answers. Almost immediately, fans began searching for explanations. What happened between them? Did something go wrong? Was there a betrayal? Did fame change their relationship? Did the pressure become too much? The internet began creating theories. People searched through old videos. They looked for hidden clues. They tried to understand a story that was never meant to be public. But the reality behind the situation was far more human than many people expected. Because this was not simply a story about scandal. It was not about one dramatic moment. It was about pressure. It was about exhaustion. It was about two people carrying a dream that slowly became heavier than either of them imagined. When Jolene first became part of Chad's journey, Bad Chad Customs was still a small dream. Before the television show, before millions of followers, before worldwide recognition, it was simply Chad inside a modest workshop, creating vehicles nobody else would attempt. Chad already had the talent. He already had the imagination. He could look at a pile of damaged metal, and somehow see the finished creation hiding inside it. He did not build cars in the traditional way. He built through instinct, through creativity, and through experimentation. That unpredictability was exactly what made him special. But talent alone does not create a successful brand. A great builder can create amazing things. But someone has to tell the story. Someone has to organize the vision. Someone has to connect that creativity with an audience. And that person became Jolene. She became much more than a supporter. She became one of the people responsible for building the foundation behind the entire channel. She filmed the projects. She captured the behind-the-scenes moments. She helped manage communication. She helped with business decisions. She worked on schedules, partnerships, sponsorships, and the storytelling that made viewers feel connected. Slowly, the audience stopped watching only because of the cars. They started watching because of the people. They wanted to see Chad and Jolene's relationship, their teamwork, their humor, their challenges, and their shared ambition. The connection between them felt genuine, and in a world where so much online content feels carefully planned and artificial, their relationship felt real. That authenticity became one of the biggest reasons people connected with Bad Chad Customs. They were not just watching vehicles being built. They were watching a dream being created. But what viewers could not see was the pressure building behind the scenes. Because success brings expectations, and the bigger Bad Chad Customs became, the heavier those expectations became. Every new build had to be bigger than the last. Every video had to attract more attention. Every project came with tighter deadlines. Every sponsor expected more. Every decision carried more pressure. And slowly, the dream that once brought excitement started becoming a responsibility that never stopped. Behind the excitement viewers saw on screen, there was another reality. The bigger the Bad Chad Customs brand became, the more pressure started following it. What began as a passion project slowly transformed into a full-time machine that never seemed to stop. During the day, there were builds happening inside the workshop. Cameras were recording. Content was being created. Projects were moving forward. But when the cameras stopped rolling, the work did not end. There were emails to answer, business decisions to make, sponsors to communicate with, schedules to organize, and future projects to plan. While fans saw the final videos, they rarely saw the amount of effort required to create them. A successful YouTube channel is not built only with creativity. It requires constant management, constant planning, and constant pressure to keep the audience interested. Over time, much of that responsibility fell on Jolene. She was not only helping build the brand, she was helping carry it. But the hardest part was that she rarely showed how much weight she was carrying. On camera, she remained positive. She continued smiling. She continued supporting the vision. She continued helping Chad chase bigger dreams. To the audience, she appeared strong, like someone who could handle anything. But sometimes, the people who appear the strongest are the ones carrying the most silent struggles. While Chad was focused on creating bigger and more ambitious builds, Jolene was focused on keeping everything around those builds working. She was managing the details that most viewers never noticed, the parts of the business that existed away from the cameras, and the invisible work that allowed the visible success to happen. Slowly, that constant pressure began taking a toll, because when a dream becomes a business, the relationship with that dream can change. Something that once brought excitement can begin creating exhaustion. The passion that once felt freeing can start feeling like a responsibility. For Jolene, the question eventually became unavoidable. Where did her own life fit into all of this? For years, so much of her identity had become connected to Bad Chad Customs, the brand, the channel, the projects, the audience, and the constant demand to keep moving forward. But behind the success was a person who also had her own dreams, needs, and limits. A person who needed time to breathe, time to focus on herself, and time away from the endless pressure. According to statements and discussions surrounding their story, Jolene eventually reached a point where she needed distance from the non-stop demands of the business. She needed space, not because the dream was meaningless, not because the years together meant nothing, but because sometimes even the strongest people reach a point where they cannot continue carrying everything alone. And that moment changed everything, because for Chad, Jolene was not simply a business partner. She was someone who had been beside him through the entire journey, someone who helped transform an idea into reality, and someone who helped create the world that millions of fans connected with. When that person stepped away, the impact was much bigger than a business change. It was personal. It forced Chad to look back and recognize something he may not have fully understood before: how much Jolene had actually contributed, how much she had sacrificed, and how much of the success people saw from the outside depended on the work happening quietly behind the scenes. Later, Chad spoke openly about the situation. Instead of anger or blame, his words focused on regret. He acknowledged that he did not fully understand how exhausted Jolene had become. He admitted that he was so focused on building the dream that he failed to notice how much pressure she was carrying. That realization became one of the most emotional parts of the story, because sometimes people do not lose relationships because they stop caring. Sometimes they lose them because they become too focused on the goal and forget to notice the person standing beside them. They believe that person will always be there. They believe there will always be more time, more chances, and more opportunities to say thank you, until one day that person steps away, and suddenly, everything feels different. When news of Jolene's departure became public, the internet reacted immediately. As often happens with public figures, rumors began spreading. Some people created their own explanations. Some blamed Chad. Others blamed Jolene. Some suggested there was a hidden story behind everything, but Chad pushed back against many of those assumptions. The message was that this was not about a dramatic scandal. It was not about a single explosive moment. It was about to people who had spent years under intense pressure, to people who had built something incredible together, but who eventually reached a point where the weight became too much. Perhaps that reality was harder to accept than any dramatic rumor. Because life is not always changed by one major event. Sometimes things slowly become heavier. Responsibilities increase. Stress builds. People become tired. And without anyone realizing it, the distance begins growing. After Jolene stepped away, fans immediately noticed that something felt different. The videos changed. The atmosphere changed. The energy that had once defined Bad Chad Customs was not the same. For years, viewers had become familiar with the balance between Chad's unpredictable creativity and Jolene's calm presence. She was the person who helped guide the chaos. Without